Beautiful Days, Super Danganronpa 2. The Lazy Adventures of Nanamin the Mercenary. Story by Onogami Meiya. Illustration by Asaki Toru. Today, some cheap 3-note music was coming from the pitch-black screen. More casually called chiptune, the somehow nostalgic melody introduced the pixelated characters appearing in the center of the screen. For eyes used to looking at the realistic CG nowadays, that rough look had a greater charm. To facilitate understanding even with the restrictions on the data, the characters were super deformed, with heads the size of their bodies, and after they ran freely around the screen, they finally lined up in the lower middle. At the same time, with a flashy dun-da-da-dun sound effect, the title logo appeared over the line of characters. A deliberately cheesy font spelled out the title, The Lazy Adventures of Nanamin the Mercenary.
Yeah, this is what a game should feel like.
Nanamin, or Nanami Chiaki, smiled in satisfaction as she looked down on the latest handheld game on the screen. Hotel Mirai, on Jabberwock's first island. Since 3 meals a day were being prepared in the restaurant on the second floor, everyone on the Hope's Peak Academy school field trip of mutual killing visited this building at roughly the same time every day. The first floor was the lobby, but as there was no need to go to the unstaffed reception desk, generally people passed through without stopping. Today, however, upon noticing Nanami innocently sitting on the couch in the corner and looking down at the small screen, Hinata Hajime called out to her, "Nanami, you're playing a handheld game today. You even have Monami with you." Nanami's life was comprised of eating, sleeping, and gaming. Usually at this hour, before dinner, she would be clinging to one of the games already set up here, doing some endless Nagoya attacks or something, so it was a bit surprising.
Ah, Hinata-kun. I wouldn't say I'm playing the game so much as bug hunting.
Nanami raised her head in greeting only for a brief moment, before looking back down at the screen.
I'm a helper!
Monami, beside her, seemed somehow proud, but it didn't look like she was doing anything but looking at the screen along with Nanami. Seemingly unable to pass the jargon, Hinata furrowed his brow.
Bug? Do you mean debugging, Nanami-san? So you're finding and fixing the bugs or errors in the program.
Joining the conversation from the side was Komaeda Nagito, a refreshing smile appearing on his face. As the holder of the talent of super high school level good luck, he relied on that luck to the letter, and perhaps because of the difficulty he faced with the bad luck that visited him to balance out the excessive good luck, he took great interest in the talents of the other students.
Yeah, that's right. Right now I'm playtesting the game I made. Monami-chan was just giving me her thoughts.
Having seemingly pieced together the situation from all the different words flying past him, Hinata looked deeply interested.
You really are the super high school level gamer, Nanami. You're debugging a game you made?
It was easy. There are lots of free game-making programs now.
These days, indie games and the like were no rarity. There were even some sold by commercial publishers. Nanami didn't think this much was a big deal, but the talent-loving Komaeda's eyes began to light up.
Amazing! As expected of Nanami-san. Hey, if you like, could you show it to us?
It's fine. Here.
Oi, lay off, Komaeda. Don't get in her way. You might mess it up, you know.
Hinata had a sullen expression, but this was what she had been hoping for. She thought it was about time to get the opinions of someone other than Monami, and especially Hinata Hajime's.
It's okay. It's not an active time battle system.
Active?
That's right. If even someone like Monami has an opinion worth listening to, then our opinion should be even more important, right?
Komaeda, who loved talents, was extremely sharp-tongued towards those with no talent.
Komaeda-kun, that's horrible!
For a variety of reasons.
Well, whatever.
Is what Hinata's face seemed to say, as he peered to look at the screen along with Kamase. The opening was long over, and now the screen was in the middle of gameplay. Just like the title screen, the play screen was all pixels. There was a bar counter placed on the upper half of the screen, and a pink-haired SD character on the other side of it. Excluding the special event directions, there was nothing else displayed on the screen other than Hero Dispatch Facility.
The Lazy Adventures of Nanamin the Mercenary? Are you the protagonist of this game?
Hinata questioned, after reading aloud the title displayed at the very top of the screen. The pink-haired character had bobbed hair that looked like it flipped out at the tips, the spitting image of the girl before him.
Yeah, well, I guess. The player controls the hero who gives out mercenary work, Nanamin, and she gets advice from the helper character, Usamin, picks out what skills are needed for each quest, and dispatches heroes who have them.
Next to Nanamin, there was indeed Usamin, with prominent rabbit ears. There probably wasn't any need to ask who the model for this one was.
If the dispatched heroes handle the quest well, then you're okay. If you clear lots of quests, save up enough EXP and money, get your preparations in order, and finally beat the Demon King Shirakurikuma, then you beat the game.
As Nanami was explaining, a generic NPC appeared from the bottom of the screen and informed the person across the counter of their quest, i.e., the dispatch details. This was still at a very early stage in the game, so they wanted something very simple. Collect 3 medicinal plants from the Novice Meadows. She selected Accept from the choices in the upper right corner of the screen.
Basically, you leave the important part up to the others. That's so like you.
Hinata smiled bitterly, but Kamase cut in.
That's not true. It's hard to be the conductor. This is a game that Nanami-san made, so if you don't carefully consider the aptitude of each hero you dispatch, you'll hit a roadblock before long, won't you?
That's right. Each hero character's ability points are pretty extremely unbalanced, so the difficulty level is high. Once you dispatch a character, you can't call them back, and you have to leave the actions up to the characters during quests. And if characters die, they become lost, and there isn't any way to revive them. You could say that for a first-time player, it might be death at first sight.
Nanami responded, gently averting her gaze in her uncertainty. By death at first sight, she meant that often, when first starting the game, the player will be forced into a stalemate by some trick. 2 powerful bosses, or a difficulty level with tricks that rely on RL luck, punishing incompetence by sapping away your drive to play the game at all.
But it's okay. There's a bailout option just for beginners.
Rather than explaining it, she went into the menu and selected the option for viewing the potential dispatch heroes at a glance. There were 15 in all, with all sorts of jobs and skills.
You should just select the all-purpose Straight Man Warrior Hajime first. With his special skill, Straight Man Reflect, he can undo any mistakes that the other characters make.
Oi, Nanami.
Hinata seemed as if he had realized something, but Kamase smiled.
He even has an antenna on his head. What an interesting character. Though, he doesn't have any other distinguishing characteristics. On the other hand, this Nagito character's fluffy white hair and hooded robe are easier to understand.
I guess, but Hajime is useful. He worked the best with the Russian roulette sage Nagito. Nagito has extremely high luck, and he can even use powerful magic without any MP, but he takes heavy recoil damage and falls into the red pretty quickly. But if he's in a party with Hajime, Hajime's lightning rod antenna will activate.
The game was still on the Hero Dispatch Facility screen, but after accepting the request and dispatching heroes, another oblong screen popped up on the lower half of the screen. Amidst the verdant scenery of the Novice Meadows, it showed Nagito raising a staff and casting a spell. Hajime collapsed by his side, blinking red. Plainly speaking, he was on the verge of death.
Look, he protected him.
Great job, Nanami-san. It says you cleared the quest!
So, basically, these characters are modeled after me and Komaeda, aren't they? Unable to stand it anymore, Hinata cut in with a grand gesture, and Komaeda smiled happily.
Hinata-kun. Or, no, perhaps I should be calling you Hajime in this instance? You really are the super high school level straight man.
You're wrong! Don't just say whatever you want, just because I don't remember my talent yet. You're super high school level insensitive! As the four of them got noisier, Hinata's loud voice was the first to be heard by the others filtering in. It was almost dinner time, so everyone was passing through the first floor on their way up.
Oh, what's that? Nanami, are you playing a new game? You made it? Seriously?
An imaginary world brought forth by the Queen of Cybersport herself. How intriguing.
Soda Kazuichi and Tanaka Gundam peered at the screen with deep interest. Soda was interested as a mechanic, and Tanaka was interested as a fan of nerd wish fulfillment fantasies, but it seemed they were at least united in the fact that they were interested in the game at all.
Oh! I have been informed that Japanese video games are the height of entertainment. When the mustachio plumber does away with the perilous mushrooms to save the world, the fun does not stop.
Sonia Nevermind, with an interest in Japanese culture, was also starry-eyed. Soda ate up her favorable reaction.
Ah, you like video games too, huh, Sonia-san? Which character is your favorite? Mine's probably the mildly delinquent blacksmith, Ichikazu.
Well, the Beastmaster of Chaos, Charmoro, is so cool. His companions, the Ham-Hams, are also very cute.
As to be expected of the Holy Mother of Darkness, I shall say that you have a discerning eye. Thank you.
Averting his eyes from Sonia's innocent delight, Tanaka wound his scarf around his face. As Soda wore a pitiful expression, Hinata and Komaeda gently patted his shoulders. A video game that Nanami made? You dare to buck the trends. It may only be a beta, but I have the feeling that it shall mature into something marketable, so you might want to consider that option.
Huh? Cute pointy graphics! Is there a rhythm game part?
Is there a dating part and an undressing part? Especially the undressing part.
Togami Byakuya spoke like a producer, while Miyoda Ibuki and Hanamura Teruteru were distracted asking about their own niche interests. They may have been less passionate than the last three, but they seemed more or less interested. These six were each motivated by their own personal curiosities, but there were also those who just stayed on the edges of the crowd from the beginning, aware they were out of their element.
So you can make your own games too, Chiaki-chan. That's amazing. I can do maintenance on my own camera at least, but otherwise... I like games where you squish Mr. Ants. But it might be worth squishing this character or that character too. Just kidding. Sayonji-san, why are you staring at me?
Koizumi Mahiru, Sayonji Hyoko, and Sumiki Mikan weren't very familiar with video games at all. They glanced briefly at the screen before heading straight up to the second floor.
A video game that Nanami made? I'm a little interested, but I'll restrain myself. I can't have my eyesight going bad. Only 1 hour of video games a day!
I just get tired staring at that tiny screen too. More importantly, it's chow time!
Nidai Nekomaru, whose body was his asset, and Owari Akane, appetite incarnate, also both disappeared into the restaurant.
My apologies. I also do not know much about video games. However, is this what they call pixel art? This character is fairly cute. No, It is nothing.
Pekuyama Peko had only a vague understanding of video games in the first place. She looked reluctant to leave behind the sight of the SD characters, but she also went up to the second floor.
A video game? Pointless. I can't believe you can do something like that when you're in a life or death situation.
Scorning the crowd gathered around the game, Kuzuryu Fuyuhiko also hunched up his thin shoulders and left.
Everyone has their own opinions. Yeah, you're right.
Taking all of their distinct early opinions to heart, Nanami went to accept the next requests for the sake of the remaining crowd. This time the challenge was, eat all the giant tempura.
What do you think, Manami-chan? Well, if that's the quest, I think the genius pervert cook Hanamura and the sumo heir Byakute are well suited.
Sound advice. Nodding, Nanami first selected those two characters.
Then let's add Hajime for support.
Is Hajime okay? Did he recover from all the damage he took before?
As Hinata watched attentively with apparent unease, a cafeteria scene appeared on the lower half of the screen. The three chosen characters scurried around here and there on top of the giant tempura and its conspicuously enlarged pixels. In a sudden attack partway through, it seemed as if Hanamura might get scooped up by a ladle, which was another twist. But thanks to Byakute's authoritative arm thrust, it did not come to pass.
Woohoo! Good old Byakute-chan! As cool as ever! Stunning amazing!
Honestly, even though he's a man, I've fallen for him. No, perhaps I should say, because he's a man.
As Miyoda and Hanamura squealed profusely, Togami coolly estimated he only used the right power at the right time, didn't he? While Komaeda laughed, patting Hinata's head as he said,
The authoritative arm thrust pushed Hanamura out of the way, but in exchange, Hajime fell into the tempura oil instead.
Next was the Kidnapped Ham Hands quest. This time, once again following Monami's advice, she chose the Beastmaster of Chaos, Charmuro, and the common senseless queen, Never.
Please, use Ichikazu too!
Due to Soda's selfish wishes, she also chose the mildly delinquent blacksmith, Ichikazu, and then Hajime for support. Firstly, they had to subdue the demons that kidnapped the Ham-Hams, and after that, the second stage of the quest was to subdue the Ham-Hams themselves, after they transformed into demons due to being exposed to the demonic miasma. Charmuro embraced the completely transformed Ham-Hams, quietly shedding tears. Never embraced him in turn, letting tears of her own fall. Their tears mixed together and fell onto the Ham-Hams, bringing them back good as new, and the mission was complete.
Thank goodness!
Perhaps because the simple presentation of nothing but pixels and words made it all the more heart-wrenching, Sonia's eyes grew watery.
I am truly glad.
Tanaka was apparently so moved that he forgot to put on his exaggerated airs. His eyes also watery.
Ichikazu did stuff too, Sonia-san. Like, cheering them on.
Hajime did stuff too, didn't he? Until Chamuro could use his certain death technique, he took all of the hits, right? Thanks to that, he barely has any HP left. Again!
Soda and Hinata each tried to make their appeal, but it didn't really seem as if they managed to reach the pair beyond their haze of deep emotion.
Then, next up.
As Nanami started to get a new quest, Hinata stopped her.
Nanami, let's not go overboard with the game, and at least get some food for now.
I guess.
At his insistence, she saved the game for the moment and turned off the power on the system. The group filed up the stairs into the restaurant. After dinner was over, Nanami went back into the first floor lobby and turned the power back on. Monami plopped down next to her, recreating basically the same scene as before they ate.
Are you still playing that game?
Hinata called out to her, astonished, on his way back to his cottage.
Yeah. Ideally, I want to play through it several times to debug it properly, so I can beat the game without letting anyone become lost.
Her voice became slightly less enthusiastic, and this time it was Komaeda who smiled in an attempt to cheer her up.
As expected at the super high school level gamer! I forgot to give you my opinions earlier, but we'll hang out with you too, right, Hinata-kun?
Of course, those who showed no interest from the start, and even those who seemed somewhat interested, had headed back to their cottages before anyone knew it. It was getting late, and perhaps they had grown tired of the monotonous gameplay that neglected heroes after they were dispatched. These four were the only ones left.
Komaeda-kun! You say some good things sometimes. Hinata-kun! You definitely have to join us, please! Hinata-kun, is it okay? If you could, please.
Komaeda was one thing, but Monami and Nanami both asking him the favor had an effect.
I guess. I have something to say about how you treat Hajime, too.
Hinata idly murmured, and Komaeda laughed and said,
That'll have to come up.
Before they all peered down at the screen once more. Feeling their gaze upon her, Nanami watched Nanamin on the screen.
And this time, let's challenge, protect the peace of the beach in swimsuits. Monami-chan, what do you think we should do? I think any girl characters would be a good idea. Got it. Then, we already dispatched Never earlier. Then the one-woman band Ibukisu, the sadistic dancing queen Pyoko, the busybody artist Mahiruma, and the sexy clumsy nurse Mika will go.
Then obviously you should bring Hajime for support. Oi, give Hajime a break once in a while.
Before Komaeda even had the chance to suggest it, Hajime was also chosen. An ocean scene spread out across the lower half of the screen, displaying demons in squid and octopus forms.
Hey, Nanami, could this plot be...
Yeah, if you mention the beach and swimsuits, it's a guarantee that there will be a scene where swimsuits fall off.
Nanami was calm, but Monami turned red, suddenly hugging the screen to try and cover it up.
You mustn't see! At least wait until college for something like...
You say that, but if you don't look, then you can't help bug hunting.
Komaeda lifted Monami up so she couldn't protest, breathing onto her plush ears. His fingers pet and ruffled her fluffy body.
Or perhaps, Monami, you'd like to see a scene where something of yours falls off instead? This hand, for example.
Not allowed! Gory scenes are too much for high school students!
As Monami wriggled and struggled, Nanami went through the event text.
Nanami, is this okay to watch?
Hinata was fidgety and frank, but his eyes didn't leave the screen.
It's okay. It's not that arousing.
As countless squid and octopus-like tentacles attacked, the curtains opened on the promised scene.
It's true that if the graphics don't change, and it just says,
"Yeah, give me back my swimsuit,"
then I don't feel anything.
It was even less arousing than expected. Komaeda nodded at this healthy teenage boy remark.
I guess not. Well, you're just supposed to compensate with your imagination. Look. Everyone's acting like it's Hajime's fault the swimsuits fell off, and it triggered an event where his comrades all hit him. But it's just words. So, you don't feel anything.
Speak for yourself, Hinata spit out, even more angry in his dejection, furrowing his brow and looking at Nanami.
Hey, Nanami, I get how you see me, but that's all the more reason for you to make me seem cooler in the video game, at least. Please?
I guess you definitely don't seem very cool.
Hajime was continually relegated to a support role, but the real protagonist was Nanamin, so even Nanami wasn't taking him seriously.
But it's because Hinata-kun is this kind of character that the game is able to progress, I think.
The story wouldn't progress if it was just Nanamin, secluded behind her counter and not going on any adventures. It was because there were the 15 heroes, particularly Hajime, that the story worked.
Ha ha ha! You admitted that it was Hinata-kun.
When Komaeda interrupted and ruined the mood, Hinata came back with a half-hearted, "Shut up!" Averting his eyes, he continued,
I guess. Well then, it can't be helped. If someone didn't take the short end of the stick, you couldn't get out of some of these situations.
That's right, Hinata-kun. Sorry. Looks like Nagito was careless again.
While Hinata had been looking away in his awkwardness, Nanami had accepted a new quest, and Hajime was immediately in the red.
This could be bad.
Nanami's expression didn't change, but her tone had a suspicious sense of impatience.
Hey, in this video game, if someone becomes lost, you can't revive them, right? Now, Hinata-kun, this is just a video game, all right? And look, I think Nagito has revival magic, so don't worry.
Komaeda-kun, if Nagito uses that magic, this time he'll be the one who's lost, though. And it's time for you to let me go already.
Got it.
I didn't say I wanted you to drop me, so I hit the floor.
While all this ruckus went on, Nagito just barely managed by the skin of his teeth to use healing magic without the need for revival magic, and Hajime managed to avert the danger of becoming lost. Hinata, who had been left in suspense from taking it too personally, heaved a sigh and let his shoulders droop.
This is bad for my heart. It's almost 10 o'clock. So, I'm going back to my cottage already. You guys go back soon too, okay?
Yeah, I will.
Nanami nodded slightly, standing up and abruptly asking Hinata a question.
That's right. Hinata-kun, other than your treatment in it, did you have anything else concerning you about the game?
You really don't feel like hiding who you modeled everyone after anymore, do you?
Hinata stared at Nanami, eyes narrowed, and spent some time thinking before pointing out,
in the first place, do you think the title is kind of a lie? The protagonist just dispatches heroes. She doesn't go on any adventures.
I guess. It's okay if the title is a lie.
Nanami smiled faintly, picking up the sobbing Monami from the floor and holding her gently. For a while after that, Nanami and Monami laboriously continued their speed run. Hinata and Komaeda spoke up from time to time, expressing their opinions on one thing or another. But in the end, the two of them still couldn't keep up with Nanami's zeal. Even as Nanami was left all alone, she didn't stop playing, aiming for the best ending. Discussing various things with Monami, she passed through the quests with prudence. The Springtime of Youth Out of Bounds quest was cleared with the combination of the Minimum of Corruption Kuzuhiko and the Braided Swordswoman Pepeko. An evening together by the riverbed was left to the heavyweight trainer Nyanmaru and the wild brawler Megane. Of course, the support role was left to Hajime each time. But as time went on, the quests became more difficult and more specialized. She opposed it by accumulating EXP and raising levels, raising money, and preparing better equipment. But there was a limit to the quests. At last, one hero fell, and then another, and then...
It ended up like this after all. Chiaki-chan!
As Nanami's shoulders slumped quietly, Monami gently held her in her soft arms. Hinata passed by. Once again, Nanami and Monami sitting on the sofa on the first floor of the hotel, looking down at a handheld game screen. Lately, he'd frequently gone past without saying anything so as not to disturb them, but today he noticed some unfamiliar background music and stopped in his tracks.
Nanami, are you starting a new game this time?
Ah, Hinata-kun. No, it's still the same one.
Is it? But I've never heard that music.
The Lazy Adventures, etc., was selling itself in the style of the classics, and so there weren't very many different BGM tracks that played in it. The one that played during the hero dispatch facility was a poppy tune that could be said to be the main theme. Then the music changed when dispatching the heroes for the quest, and during battles an up-tempo rock tune raised tension. However, now, the song coming from near Nanami's hands was somehow sad, a solemn piece. It was almost like a requiem.
The screen's different too. The characters are Nanamin and Usamin, but this isn't the hero dispatch facility, is it? But the title is the same.
Kamase unexpectedly leaned in from the side.
That's right. True to the title, Nanamin and Usamin have left the counter and started on their adventures.
Up until this point, the style was to show the dispatch on the lower half of the screen, but Nanamin and Usamin were walking around, finally on a true dispatch mission.
What? Did you finally give Hajime a rest? But it's unbalanced if it's just you two, isn't it? Put in the heavyweight trainer Nyamaru or someone.
I can't do that.
Perhaps the way her voice cracked stirred up some kind of emotion. Hinata's expression changed.
Sorry, do you mean that Nyamaru's already... Oh, but if you need fighter types, there's Megane and Kuzuhiko and Pepeko too, right?
Trying to encourage Nanami, Hinata named off several heroes in succession, but Monami shook her head gently.
Nobody else is left.
Huh? You can't mean...
With a look of surprise, Kamase stretched out his fingers to take control of the game system in Nanami's place. In the command screen, the hero dispatch list was displayed. There were no more heroes available for dispatch.
In the second half of the game, the difficulty level ramps up even more.
Nanami began explaining, voice still cracking from time to time.
I tried hard and barely made it, but the Elite Despair 4... 4 people are randomly chosen from the heroes who died along the way. While I was fighting them, everyone else who had survived became lost too. So there's nothing else to do but just use Nanamin and Usamin by themselves to defeat the Demon King, Shirokurokuma.
So the organization of the screens changed, and so did the background music. As Hinata pointed out, 2 magic users made the party imbalanced, but as there wasn't anybody else, it couldn't be helped. When she was writing the code, she knew that sooner or later it would end up like this.
Sorry, Nanami.
As Hinata hung his head, Nanami gave him her usual faint smile.
Don't worry about it, Hinata-kun. It's okay. I mean, this is just a game, right? We can do it over and over again.
I guess so. This is your first time making a game. You can change how strong the characters are, and change the story, and do whatever you want.
Perhaps because he was relieved by the smile, Hinata smiled himself as he agreed. This time, it was Kamase's expression that changed.
You've got that wrong, Hinata-kun. Huh?
Yeah, that's right. It's like Kamase-kun says. Maybe.
Nanami gave a troubled smile. She knew Hinata was fretting over her, but that had no bearing on this conversation.
Works can sometimes exceed a creator's expectations. Once a game has been put into motion, even the game master can't easily change the results.
Nanami certainly did create the video game called The Lazy Adventures of Nanamin the Mercenary. She picked the title, she picked the characters, she prepared the sprites, she arranged the BGM, she set up each quest and event, and determined the flow of the game as a whole. There was no mistaking the fact that she was the creator of the game. But just like in the real world, once a world is created, it doesn't go according to the creator's expectations. If, unable to stomach that fact, they fine-tuned everything like Hinata said and forcefully altered the flow, it would just be incompatible with what was born.
I see.
Hinata dropped his shoulders, and Nanami lowered her head.
Sorry if I made you feel bad.
No, video games are your specialty. Sorry for running my mouth when I don't really know anything.
Hinata saying not to worry about it was a great relief. Words that shouldn't have been said just tumbled out, spurred on by that expression.
That's not true. I mean, maybe you're the one who's right, Hinata-kun.
Huh?
Actually, I've done this game over time after time, but it always ends up like this.
She tried all sorts of methods. Even adding Hajime as support each time was a strategy developed after spending some time around the block. Thanks to that, she had been able to safely progress the game, but no matter what, the victims always started popping up during the fight with the Elite Despair 4.
I thought maybe there was some way I could do it with the character's abilities and the story like this, but I guess I can't. Maybe I have to get down to changing the basics, like you said, Hinata-kun.
She tried tweaking stats and the order of quests too, but it wasn't enough to make any significant improvement. Maybe she was just a gamer after all, and she didn't have any talent in creating games, in creating a world.
It might be impossible for all of these characters to find their happy ending together.
Nanami-san!
Chiaki-chan!
Komaeda and Monami called out to her at the same time. Nanami felt even more ashamed in the face of their anxiety. But Hinata suddenly cleared his throat, adjusting his tone of voice.
Hey! Nanamin!
Startled by his serious tone, she raised her head and met Hinata's gaze as he stood, chin tilted slightly up.
It's okay. The truth is, I, Hajime, have been hiding a special cheat ability.
Huh?
As Nanami blinked in surprise, Hinata wiped his sweaty palms on his sides, continuing,
You thought I was just lost, but actually, I was alive. With my power, I also revive all the other characters, and when you two are in a pinch in the fight with the Demon King, we come to save you. How about that?
His cheeks were slightly red, and he was speaking more quickly than usual. He huffed, roughly sticking out his chest, but the antenna on his head standing up sharply conveyed his inner-tension. Nanami said nothing, but to her side, Komaeda clutched his stomach, doubling over in laughter.
That's the cheesiest of cheese! You sure are embarrassing, Hinata-kun. Shut up, Komaeda!
Hinata's face grew even redder, and Komaeda shrugged his shoulders, suggesting,
Well then, when Nagito falls into a predicament, he uses the last of his strength, straining his voice to use his revival magic, awakening the revived Hajime's cheat. How's that sound? You asshole! You're just trying to take the good part for yourself. And if you do it like that, wouldn't that make Nagito the only one who can't be revived? Then obviously it would go like, Hajime revives you later too, and I'm supposed to thank you with tears in my eyes, right? As Hinata urged him not to escape through death, Komaeda shrugged his shoulders. Thank me? Good grief, Hinata-kun. You're completely blurring the line between reality and the video game. Shut up! Stop avoiding the subject! Having a comrade you thought was dead get revived and having everyone stand together is a more ironclad rule than swimsuits falling off at the beach, isn't it? You've got that wrong. Don't underestimate the demand for character death.
A happy ending riding on a single sacrifice is delectable, Komaeda refuted in an absent-minded voice.
Stop fighting, you two!
Monami cut in hastily to try and break them up, but Hinata and Komaida's dispute was pure incandescence. They couldn't at all agree on what would be the most dramatic way to defeat the Demon King.
Chiaki-chan, what should we do? Chiaki-chan?
Looking up at Nanami, who was smiling ear to ear for a rare once, Monami tilted her head.
No, it's nothing. I was just thinking, Hajime really is amazing.
Truthfully, Nanami had been thinking it was about time to quit playing this game. Even if it was a game made by herself, the super high school level gamer. No matter how disastrous the circumstances, it couldn't be a perfect stalemate. Even with just Nanamin and Usamin, it was possible to subjugate the Demon King. She had tried seeing the ending like that once, but it just made her feel lonely. If Nanamin and Usamin seized victory after the sacrifice of a large number of their friends, it would just end with them rebooting the world again in order to give new hope to their surroundings. But as Hinata said, this was a game. It was a simulation of the real world. It was because it was an imaginary imitation of the world that it was all the more in this position.
You're right. At least within the game, hope is required.
No matter how much it was derided as stale, trite, or deus ex machina, at the end of a heartbreaking, painful story, wasn't it the natural reaction to want to see a light at the end of the tunnel?
And even the world of the video game is part of reality, I think.
In which case, the hope born in the imaginary world should also have the potential to topple despair.
Nanami, I agree with that!
It seemed, even in the middle of his heated argument with Komaida, he still heard her voice. As Hinata gave his passionate argument, Nanami kept smiling ear to ear, nodding. The end. Footnotes. 1. As is elaborated on right afterwards, death at first sight is a specific Japanese video game term. It refers to video game situations where a player is almost guaranteed to die the first time they play, only learning through experience the tricks to avoid their demise. Most of the examples provided by the internet seem to be in reference to specific bosses or stages. I don't think this term necessarily refers to things as relentless as Kaizo Mario, for example. In this case, I believe it just means that the learning curve is steep. Nintendo hard. 2. If you're wondering why Gundam's fantasy name is the only one that doesn't sound like his real name, it's because his is just a name smush of two actual Mobile Suit Gundam characters, Char and Amuro. While I didn't bother embellishing or translating the names for the other characters, except Sonia, this one was necessary to preserve the reference.